see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an atheist.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday morning, July 18th, 2021. I am Larry Rhodes, or Doubter5, and as usual, we have our co-host Wombat on the line with us. Hello, Wombat.
Did you say it's July 18th already?
It is.
It's going to be that
That's over
all
half the year
day
gone.
long.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey. I'm enjoying it. It's been a good year so far.
Yeah, very good. Okay, and with us today we have George, 2.5 from Brooklyn, or originally from Brooklyn. Hello, George.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
And Dread Pirate Higgs.
How are you there?
From Canada, and John Richards from England, UK,
Hello.
England. I'll get it right here in a minute.
One of those places has to be one of them.
Hello.
Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. Wombat, what's our topic going to be for today?
We're going to be talking about double standards, why they're dangerous and why they're also really annoying. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, let's throw it up to our own Dread Pirate Higgs for our weekly invocation.
Okay, I'm going to put on my hat. Give me a sec.
Nice. Also, Larry, the way how I think about UK and England, it's sort of like there's parts of Ireland.
Our
there's parts
noodly
of
lord,
Scotland.
who art in a colander, al dente be thy noodles, thy blood be rum, thy sauce be yum, with meat as it is with vegetables. Give us this day our garlic bread, and forgive us our cussing, as we forgive those who cuss against us. And lead us not into ketoism, but deliver us some carbs. For thine are the noodles, and the sauces, and the grog, whenever and ever. Amen.
We're going to wait for Dread Pirate to get his headphones back on. I'm just taking up some dead air time. There we go. Great. Hey, while we're on the subject of geography, John Richards, how you been? And do you have a preference for UK or England, or is either fine?
Well, it's a very confusing place, thanks to the history.
Yeah.
We've got 4 countries, and we're all in one. So UK is the umbrella term.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't want to include Northern Ireland,
Right.
we can call it Great Britain for the remaining 3. And I'm actually located in England.
Okay.
So there you go. Pick the bones out of that.
So you said 4 countries. Is it like Scotland, Ireland, and a bit of France? Like, what's the 4th country there?
It's England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland.
Oh, Wales is its own thing? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't tell the Wales that. Yeah.
That's right. They don't want you to forget that.
Yeah, exactly. George Brown, how you been?
I've been good. Although, I like good coffee, and I'm a particular fan of a brand of coffee named Peet's.
Right.
That was brought to Berkeley, California by a man named Alfred Peet. His company has been bought and sold a number of times since then. It's still great coffee. It's so expensive I can't afford it. And it's become universal in a way. I bumped into the Peet's route driver yesterday in the parking lot of my supermarket, and she handed me a bag of coffee.
Get out of town for free?
No. She handed me a bag of coffee that had been roasted the day before in Alameda, California. So here I am sitting in rural Tennessee, drinking my very favorite coffee from Berkeley. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, very nice. That's a good day.
Yeah,
a
good day.
Dread Pirate Higgs, I want to see how you been. And what's your shirt say?
Well,
This
my
week.
shirt is a tribute to Douglas Adams.
Okay. Life, the universe, and everything. 42. It's a bunch of Venn
42.
diagrams.
And there's
Very
the
nice.
Babel fish there.
I see it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they're flying
dolphins.
dolphins.
Yeah,
Dolphins
makes real
over
good
there.
radio. Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I've been doing pretty good. I think I might have mentioned last week, or I guess it would have been last week, we had another meeting for the International Pastafarian Captain's Conclave, and so we're just working on some scripts so that we can present it to our foreign affairs ministers and see if we can get a delegation to the UN for World Truce 2021.
Nice. Also, you got a picture that you don't have to share it on the show because there's a lot of personal information on it.
Yeah.
Would you mind just telling us about it?
Well, sure. So, in struggling with the Insurance Corporation of BC, who's responsible for official identification, government issued identification, they wouldn't let me wear my tricorn. They wouldn't let me wear a colander. They wouldn't let me wear a bandana, which they allow as a hair accessory that depicted the symbol of the flying spaghetti monster on it. But the second time I went in with that bandana, I had concealed underneath a temporary tattoo. So when they were giving me grief, they said, well, would you be willing to, turn that hair accessory around so that the symbol isn't on it? And I said, where is that in your policies? And so she started to go on and giving me grief. And so I said, look, I'm going to make this incredibly easy for you. And I took it off, and her eye and her jaw just kind of dropped. And she went, okay, let's do this. And so 4 weeks later,
because there was a tattoo. There was a tattoo there.
That's exactly right. So
right.
So now I have my personal health services card and my driver's license depicted with a flying spaghetti monster symbol there on my head, and I have additional tattoos that I'm going to offer up to anyone who wants them. I'll mail it to wherever they need to go. If you want to try and get your driver's license with a tattoo. These things come off in 2 seconds with a little bit of oil.
Here's the critical question. What color is the tattoo?
It's just black.
Yeah, it won't work on me, but I appreciate the offer.
It might, it might actually stand out a bit.
Why can't we get white ones? Where are the white tattoos?
I could certainly do that. The design is in the thing, and they can just print them off. But
okay. Hit me up.
Tattoos are racist now, then, are they?
Yeah. Oh, if they let the white tattoos through, and it was like, that's fine, sir. Please line up. Yeah. It's totally good then. Doubter 5, I want to check up on you. How you been? You're on.
Just fine. I haven't had my motorcycle out lately, but playing the computer games and going to the park and conversing with people to some extent, mostly online. But
conversing with people, going outside, going to parks. What is this like? Is COVID over already?
Pretty much, at least for the summer. It may come back in a month or so, but right now I'm striking while the iron is hot, as it were.
Nice. Trying to enjoy some outdoor time.
Yep.
I've been enjoying some outdoor stuff too. I've been playing a lot of disc golf recently, and yesterday we had a tournament. So there are cards that break up different groups of people that show up. I got 3rd place on my card, and tied for 4th among all cards that were in my skill level, which is novice. So
what was the prize you won?
You don't get prizes in disc golf. The prize is playing disc golf. That's the key. That's the key.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really fun. Had a good time out there. I didn't lose a single disc.
Well,
which is,
let me tell you this. I was taking karate for a long time. I took for about 8 years. And early on, I was a brown belt, and I went to a karate weekend where they went outside and they did exercises and tournaments and stuff. And I won 1st place in the brown belt division. They did not give me trophies. I stopped at a trophy shop on the way home and bought one. So there's always that option.
There's always the option of buying your own trophy. But I buy my own 3rd place trophy, though. That's the craziest part. Yeah. Okay. But that's good. I'm glad you won it. So today we're going to be talking about double standards, why they're dangerous, why they're annoying. Why I want to talk about it is because we had a really interesting conversation last week. Very nice guy who was on. His name was Isaiah. But I think we had 2 stages of the talk that we were having with him. One where we asked him, essentially how you're doing. And then the other one, why do you believe? And I think when you get to the why you believe and how he came to know that his God is real, he was a Christian, it was like a shopping list of every single red flag that I think most atheists are familiar with. Yeah. I want to believe it. That's why it's true. I was angry for why I was an atheist, so that's why Christianity
works for me.
It works for me. It makes me
practical.
comfortable.
Mhm.
I had a personal experience that God talked to me, but I can't test it. I know it sounds crazy, but I just believe that it's true. And in the back of my head, I was thinking, okay, well, let's try to just move on because I don't want to make this a debate. So we started talking about other countries, and I said, hey, Sweden is, has a lot of atheists in it. And I was there. I lived in Sweden for like a year and a half doing research there. That's where I came out as an atheist. It was just it was a perfect climate for it. And I think he jumped on that and was like, you know what? People always say Sweden is not an atheist country. Statistical proof and data here says 76% of this from this global report. I'm like, man, I wish you had this much enthusiasm for statistics as you did for your one test on God, that you can't test. And it stopped him there. And I was like, let's talk about double standards, because I think even if it doesn't convince him to change his mind for the better, or at least ask himself some serious questions, because he left the group since then, I do think it would be important for us to discuss why double standards are both dangerous, but also really, annoying from an atheist perspective when we've seen enough of them. And that's not to say that I'm not immune to them either. I'd like for them to be called out. But John Richards, I would say this. Do you have a single standard for knowing if things are true or not? And if you can, share that with us. If not, let's talk about it. But we'll start with you. How do you know if things are true or not?
Shareable, repeatable observations.
I dig it. Yeah. Shareable and repeatable observations. Okay. John Richards, I'm not putting you on the spot, but in this book called the Bible, there was like 12 repeated stories that are kind of closely related to each other. Would that be enough for you to then believe that a God is real if you had 12 stories that all more or less kind of said the same thing? Or at least 4 stories?
I know the Bible calls them witnesses, but unfortunately, modern usage of the word means that we've got to have a person who we can put in a witness box and question in order to see whether their stories are consistent, whether they keep to the same account. And we can't do that to these guys who all died 2,000 years ago. So I don't accept that they're witnesses. What we have here are very old reports. And unfortunately for the believers in this particular story, the earliest surviving written accounts of those reports date from no closer to the events that they claim to report than 30 years. Some of them much, much further apart. But this means that it's highly likely that the reports were not written at the time of the events. Certainly they don't survive if they were. So therefore, it's probable that these are hearsay accounts, in fact, it's another generation 30 years later. It's like you saying to me, can I prove that my grandfather carried Queen Victoria in the first car on the Isle of Wight? And I can tell you that he told me that before he died.
I can't tell if this is an outrageous statement or not. Like, I have so little understanding of geography.
Indeed,
that's my silliness, man. Yeah. So I imagine it didn't happen.
Well, yeah. You're going to have to choose whether to believe me or not, aren't you? So it's exactly like that.
John, before we go to someone else, I would like to ask you then, if you said it's shareable and repeatable as your standard of evidence, is there a number of people that we could bring on the show who say they've talked to God that would make you believe that God talks to people, if we can repeat that enough times with enough different people?
No.
Okay.
Because
would you?
I need to be able to share it myself.
Oh, so you have to experience it yourself for it to be true?
Well, I have to know how I could experience it for myself. If you told me that I can see a particular star, I'd have to know where to look. I have to find the right telescope or something. But I need to know that at least it's possible for me to be able to repeat that observation.
This is very interesting. So I have a standard. I don't know if it's the best one, but I do like the idea of like extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? Mm-hmm. And so even if I had a billion different stories and my own personal experience of talking to a God, that's such an incredible thing that I'd probably want an even higher standard of evidence than just people repeating the same story and sharing it with me and my own personal experience before I am convinced that a God exists. Because how am I supposed to know that wasn't a demon or just an hallucination that we're all experiencing at the same time too?
Exactly.
So many other explanations.
If you go back a few hundred years, you would find everybody who would tell you that they believed that the sun went round the earth. So what we have here is the vox populis fallacy. You know,
Okay.
there's no number of people who can prove something to be true.
Now, I do like shareable and repeatable because I like science stuff, but I would say like that's a tool to get me towards the standard of evidence that I need to believe in something. But the standard is I need as much evidence to support the claim at the same standard of how incredible that claim is. And for mundane stuff, like I went to the grocery store, I don't need as much proof as say for God exists, because that's a much more extraordinary thing. Dread Pirate, I would love to hear from you. Do you have a standard for knowing if things are true or not?
Well, it's on the same level with yours, and it's an explanation for anything that requires the least amount of assumptions. So, employing Occam's razor, essentially, right?
Yes,
and
perfectly stated. Yes.
Yeah. Aside to that is Hitchens' razor, which says that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So, in certain, when we were talking to Isaiah, and I agree that he was a very nice guy, but he made some pretty outrageous claims and offered absolutely no evidence to support that. And so I could
you have examples?
just as easily dismiss that. Well, when he said
just throw shots,
he heard he knew it was Jesus Christ that spoke to him in his head. And just to take it on face value without suggesting that perhaps there's an alternate explanation, such as maybe you're tired, maybe you were hypnagogic, you were just, in that transitional phase between waking and sleeping.
Maybe
certainly I've heard voices, and I've had, odd experiences or the sense of presence in the room. But that's actually quite easily explained through psychology as, that hypnagogic state. And I see John there waving his hand. But yeah, so Occam's razor definitely, and Hitchens' razor.
Yeah, I just wanted to put in here that Occam is a village about 40 minutes drive to the north.
Get out of town.
Yep.
Wow. And that's where William of Ockham lived and had his thoughts about razors.
I didn't know it was a place. Oh, cool.
I didn't know it was a place either.
He was looking for a close shave.
Yes. Oh, there you go. Yeah, with no assumptions related. So, Dread Pirate, I loved your answer because Occam's razor is typically misnomered or miscategorized as the simplest answer is the correct one. Right. And that is not true. That's not what it even says in the rule. It's the one with the least number of assumptions. Right. Tends to be, not always, but tends to be the most true result. And when you make an assumption that, oh, well, this is God who's talking to me, it's Jesus Christ. Why? Because the voice says so. That's still an assumption, even though the voice told you it was Jesus. And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, oh, what a nice guy.
It's like saying the Bible is true because it says so, right?
Right.
You know,
in atheism, we have a saying, called tautology, where it's like I can say everything I write on this napkin is true because it says so on this napkin.
Right.
I can share it to somebody, and people will be like, "That's not the case." Well, it's like, then why is it true when the Bible does it? It's like, right. Okay. We'll go next. George Brown. How do you know if something's true or not?
Well, how do I know? Our topic is double standards, and it's on my mind. But let me digress for a moment to Occam's razor, because people have been, it's been coming up to my consciousness lately, Occam's razor, and I decided to read definitions of Occam's razor. And none of the definitions talk about Occam's razor. They talk about what the principle is, but not why it's called a razor. And so I'm always looking behind the story, and I can't find the behind in this one. Is it a Gillette? Is it a straight razor? Is it a Norelco? What kind of razor are we talking about? What is the story of the razor?
So are we going to give a serious answer or a joke? John, you want to tackle this one?
Yeah.
Oh, he's busy. He's doing a cricket league match. All right. How about this? Larry, Would you mind giving the answer for why it's called a razor?
Well, it cuts out extraneous entities, extraneous options if they're not needed. If you've got a perfectly good answer, basically, if you've got a perfectly good answer or something that explains the phenomena, you don't need to put anything else in there to try to explain it further. If it doesn't, it's not necessary.
Well, you see, I always want to know why something is called what it's named. And
well, now that we told you, oh wait, there we go. John Richards.
But I didn't mention my double standards thing. And I just want to put this out as quickly as I can. Here in Tennessee, we've been having a lot of suppression of truth on an official level going on lately. You know, it's been in the news in a number of places that are not Tennessee. It's gotten out there that, for instance, the state, I believe it's the health.
George, I know you want to talk about fascism, but we asked you, how do you know if something's true or not true? We're going to stay on. We're going to try to stay focused.
It's whether I believe it or not.
Okay.
I know it's true or not is, I mean, in my own personal life, is whether it stands the test of whatever I tested with.
So testing.
And,
okay.
Hopefully.
Testing,
Hopefully
verification, repeatability.
I like testing. Yeah.
I mean, I like the scientific method if I understand what it is. And hopefully I will be able to discern it and have doubts about myself that maybe I don't.
Not bad.
You know?
Science has room for I don't know. Dread Pirate, what do you got?
Yeah. So in philosophy, a razor is a principle or rule of thumb that allows one to eliminate or shave off unlikely explanations for a phenomena or avoid unnecessary actions.
Dread, what I love about you is you just say that from the top of your head, staring right in the camera. I totally know you weren't reading that. John Richards, what'd you have? Did you want to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say that I don't think Occam's principles were described as a razor until long after he was dead. I think it may have been by Bertrand Russell or somebody quite modern who described it, gave it the name a razor, when Occam's work was being, reinvestigated.
Nice.
So Occam didn't know. That's William of Occam. He didn't
William
know.
of Occam.
Yeah, he didn't know that he was coming up with a razor.
Nice.
He was a priest or something. What was his job? I forgot.
Yeah, he was a monk or a friar or something, yes.
Nice. His job was thinking, and you can tell, right? Doubter 5, I'd love to know, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, how do you know if something's true? And do you use multiple standards to get there? Or would you like just one?
I do. If I'm looking at a news story or something, I will check or cross-reference it with other news sources. If the statement aligns with what I know is reality, that helps. If it's something that I can personally test, I do. If it's repeatable, if somebody else has tested it and I get their verification of it, it helps. Also, I don't generally credit any supernatural claims because it's above testing. The very nature of a supernatural claim makes it above testing. And until such time as we can test them, why should I believe that they're real?
Right.
And they're also extraordinary claims. They're way above the ordinary. Right. And as I don't know who said it originally, but I believe it was Carl Sagan that most people attribute it to. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and stories in a book are not extraordinary evidence.
And what I'm making the point is, we're all saying the same thing. We're all saying we don't just care about evidence, we care about a standard of evidence, right? And that standard of evidence needs to meet the extraordinariness of the claim. And we can get there by testing, making sure it's shareable, repeatable, that we can actually test it, that we can actually investigate it, that it doesn't make a number of assumptions that we can't test. Like, all of these go into the aspects of how we begin to know things. And if we can't hit that standard, we will fall back on the scientific approach when you don't know something and you say, I don't know, because that is a totally valid thing to say until you do know something. And what we found as an interesting component with Isaiah is that when he was faced with the I don't know, his default position was, well, it has to be God. We're asking him why.
Right.
He's like, well, and he defaulted to a bunch of other dangerous standards of knowing things are true, such as, well, it makes me comfortable. Well, I want it to be true. Well, it just makes sense to me. And that is both potentially very dangerous as well as pretty annoying, because, you know, we've seen that a number of times. But I imagine we can probably handle that in the second half of the show. We can talk about why it's annoying us, why it irks us. Doubter Five, would you like to take us out, and we'll come back and we'll handle that.
Well,
segment.
sure. This is the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. We're on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we'll be right back after this short break.
To the curious, the inquisitive, the seekers of knowledge, to the ones who just want to know about life, about the universe, about yourself. Not cute questions, big questions, ones that matter. To the rebels, the artists, the free thinkers, and the innovators, who care less about labels and more about truth, who believe nonconformity is more than a bumper sticker, that knowledge is more than words on a page. You're young, you're old, you're powerful beyond measure, and the fuel of that power is not magic or mysticism, but knowledge. The things you see, the things you feel, the things you know to be true. Sure, some will doubt you. Let them. Dare to think for yourself, to look for yourself, to make up your own mind. Because in the eternal debate for answers, the one thing that's true is the power of logic.
Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM, right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday morning, July 18th, 2021. Let's talk for a moment about the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK. Founded in 2002, we're in our 19th year. ASK has over 1,000 members, and have meekly, not so meekly sometimes, Zoom meetings every week during COVID, but we also meet in person at Barley's Taproom and Pizzeria in the old city in Knoxville, out on the patio. You can find us online on Facebook, meetup.com, or knoxvilleatheist.org, or just Google Knoxville Atheist. It's just that simple. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and look for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one.
Start one.
Wombat, where you want to pick up?
We're going to be talking about why double standards annoy us, and we'll go around and talk about stories of double standards annoying us. John Richards, I think you have an example that you'd like to present.
It's topical too. It's this very day, our Prime Minister, what's his name?
I have no idea.
Maybe
Boris something.
Yeah, maybe we won't mention him for fear of being sued or something.
He's a public figure. He's a politician.
Yeah. Okay, it's Boris. Yeah, Boris Johnson. So he's recently been tested as positive for COVID. Now, he's had it before and he's double vaxxed, so he's not going to die or anything. But because he's tested positive, he can transmit it. And the same thing has happened, coincidentally. We've got a new health minister. The previous one had to resign in disgrace because he was caught fondling his girlfriend in his office. But,
his girlfriend though, right? Not his wife?
Not his
was
wife.
he married?
No.
Consenting adults.
Yes. That's
Consensual adults? What's the problem there? All right, there.
Well, yeah. Well, the problem is that he was supposed to be socially distancing. So this is double standards, isn't it? Anyway, to get back to today's story, the Prime Minister and the new Health Secretary, who have both tested positive, should be, according to their own rules, in isolation for 10 days, which is what happens to you and I if we're positive, if we've been tracked and traced by the app as having been in contact with somebody who is positive. That's how it works. But what they've done is said, well, this doesn't apply to us. we can go through this new system of testing ourselves every day. which is a pilot system that we have access to, but you don't. So that's a double standard.
I'm different, and I have a different set of rules. You follow this set of rules. Yeah,
Exactly.
I can see that.
Exactly.
And he has to he has to fondle himself now.
that one's gone.
George Brown, did you have a story you wanted to bring up? It sounded like you wanted to talk about some hypocrisy.
Can I just
yeah,
can I just finish that story, because
go for it, John.
They've climbed down. They said, okay, we will self-isolate.
Why is it a bad thing to take a 10-day vacation? Like that's the one of the best things that's happened during COVID is just, oh, I can remote work, I can take time off, and everything's cool. Yeah, take a break. It's like,
so the media castigated them, and they gave in.
Yeah, it's the dumbest thing possible. Anyway, George Brown.
Triple standard.
Well, I feel like I live in bizarro world here in a flyover state. I mean, I've been a coastal person in my life. I've lived on the East Coast. I've lived on the West Coast. Here I am in the Bible Belt, in the land of the believers, and a phrase that pops up every once in a while out of Christianity is, quote, "The truth will set you free." Am I wrong?
Yeah.
So now there is a war on truth going on in my state at the governmental level. I see politicians are trying to exterminate the truth legally. So I forget her exact title, but the Secretary of Health for the state was mysteriously fired. And vaccination encouragement seems to be expunged here and there officially. So if I've got it right, the state health department has been told that they cannot encourage vaccinations of any kind right now. The official in charge of healthcare for the state has been fired for being truthful about vaccination for COVID-19. And we have the denial of truth about Black history. What's this thing called? I forget. There's a name for it.
Gaslighting. How's that?
Gaslighting.
What's that?
Gaslighting. Trying
Gaslighting,
to rewrite history.
Wagging.
Yeah, rewrite history, but really stomp on the truth. It's like when the truth doesn't play by the rules that we are familiar with and make us comfortable, we will deny it to the point of, firing people, obliterating the truth, whatever it is.
I would like to lay on this. There's very rarely a comfortable truth, but almost every lie is comfortable, delicious, and just the most wonderful thing possible. And so what you have to learn to deal with is like a little bit of discomfort, because that's where truth is. It's not out of your way to hurt you, but it is not comfortable. It's like laying on an iron bed sometimes. It's just like, oh, I need that little bit of discomfort. Doubter 5, what do you got?
Oh, I was getting back to the double standard thing. I love it when I'm talking to him and I talk about like the Big Bang or evolution or something, age of the Earth. Sure. And he says, there's no evidence for that. That's their comeback. And to me, I'm thinking, your whole life is built around a book whose stories have no evidence to back them up.
Right.
But as soon as I bring up verifiable, scientific information, you claim there's no evidence for it. So evidence is important to you now and not then. That's double standard. It just drives me crazy.
It drives me
crazy. What happens at that point?
Sorry?
My hair falls out.
What happens at that point?
My hair turns gray. Larry? I get a gray hair. That's what happens. I get a gray hair every single time it happens. Doubter 5, I get that a lot too. I've been in labs. I've been in chemical labs with other scientists, and I'll bring up, oh, wow, you have a corgi. Those used to be wolves. Isn't that weird? And they'll be like, no, those dogs never used to be wolves. They were just always kinds of dogs. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like, yeah, evolution isn't real. I'm like, we have documented breeders that can tell you what what strains these dogs came
Animal
from.
husbandry
that's not
goes
even
back hundreds of years.
like that's recent. That's very recent. Like, no, they're always corgis. I'm like, how, you're a scientist in my lab. It's the third pillar of biology. How do you not understand evolution? It's absolutely imperative that you do. But when you challenge their God belief with the evolution claim, that's when they put on like, well, you know, carbon dating isn't as comparable to like phosphorus or ISO 32. And I read in this Nature magazine, it's like, I'm glad you have all this skepticism for this. I wish you had applied it to the God belief, because at this you're taking for face value. Whereas everything else, you have the leagues of data to disclaim it, which is great because that's a scientific process. It's good to be skeptical, but apply that to your God belief and see where it'll lead you. Dread Pirate Higgs, what do you got?
Well, I was going to say here in Canada as well, there's also a double standard, and I know what I'm about to say is probably not the popular thing to say, but you know, given the recent findings in residential schools. But it has been a long-standing policy of both federal and provincial governments to treat Indigenous peoples as almost as a distinct and separate race that have, you know, certain privileges and considerations that the rest of the population do not have. And I find that is a perfect example of a double standard. Right. If we're supposed to be all equal and we're all equal citizens under the law, that's the way it ought to be. Not set it up as you're non-Indigenous and you are Indigenous, and we are going to treat you this way and we're going to treat you the other way, you know?
Yeah, because you're not part of the system, we get to take certain advantages of you that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about this. I mean, the idea of blood and soil, of course, is really an antiquated and outdated mode of thinking. It goes back to tribalism, and it's a failed epistemology, really. I am as much, every atom in my body is, you know, from the soil here. I'm as Indigenous as anyone alive, and it just seems like an arbitrary distinction that is not really warranted, and that's kind of my feeling about it. I mean, I know terrible things have happened to Indigenous people by virtue of them identifying and their culture and all the rest of it, but I don't think it's the collective guilt of every you know, non-Indigenous person that has to now bear the weight of it, and you if you know what I mean.
I would only argue, and this is probably a much deeper topic for another time, but if there are systemic barriers inhibiting quality of life for a particular group of people, and they can't get a voice because they're not claimed to be a citizen or non-Indigenous or whatever, that's troublesome, because now you have you're being put essentially in a group that you don't have consent to get out of, so that you can seek the help that you need to support the group that you're in. And it puts everything at a double standard that's very strict. So it should be in a sense like, hey, sort of like, and I'll throw this out, it should be like a voluntary system of like, hey, if you want to be considered this, you can use this label. But for the most part, we are a system that helps everybody equally.
Right.
And regardless of whatever label you have, we will dish out the help. Yeah. Sort of like if I go play disc golf, I have a choice of being in the novice league or the amateur or like the pro level if I want to go into pro. But I have the choice of picking which one, and I can choose the level of competition I want to be in, and I'll get rated based on the one that I consensually chose to whatever label I picked. Yeah. But it's a very complicated issue. John, what do you got?
Well, I've got something that segues on nicely from what Dredd was telling us, because you guys will know that pretty much that England was the football team was in the final of the Euros last week.
Yes, I watched that.
What's that mean? What's that mean?
And it's
what is that? Is there any American that can explain that to me? What does that mean?
They're in the finals.
Finals of what?
The football,
volleyball,
soccer.
Something. Yeah. There you go.
It's a game that's kicking a ball.
Okay. And you asked questions about disc golf, and you're like, "Oh, I don't know what this is." Okay, what's soccer?
Well, it's like your game. What do you call it? Not rugby.
Foosball.
Okay, if you like, but you're not allowed to pick the ball up. So it's really just the feet, you see.
Yeah.
So anyway, England was in this, and we did very well. We came through all the different stages, winning, only conceded 1 goal in the whole of the event. And then it got to the final, and we were beaten by Italy. And unfortunately, it went to a penalty shootout, which is a horrible way to end a football match. But 3 of our players were coloured. They're British, you know, but they had ethnicity that wasn't deemed to be going back enough centuries by some people. And although they'd supported them throughout the whole of the winning stages of the event, because they missed a couple of penalties, horrible racist remarks were made on the internet. And we also have a thing over here, which is called Thought for the Day, which is a little slot on Radio 4 in the mornings where we get some religious person, usually a Christian, who gives us a little homily. And so we had this person come on at the beginning of the week, and she was saying how horrible it was, the racist remarks that have been expressed about some of our footballers. Everybody was agreeing with her, but she ended up saying, I, as a Christian, know better than this sort of thing. So she did a little bit of propaganda for her group at the end, not realizing that although she disliked racism, she didn't mind a bit of religionism.
Right. Oh, interesting. So yeah, 2 examples there. Like, hey, if we are good enough to be a part of your team during all the winning games that led us to the finals, but when we miss a penalty kick, now you have this standard where we're all essentially less than human. And then the remarks from a thought giver was essentially like, hey, I'm not racist, but as a member of a society that's probably more responsible for the systemic segregation of people and destruction of human lives than any other group, and probably the most highest successful team in terms of division across all of humanity, I don't like these terms. This actually makes me upset. It seems weird that there's that colorful perspective on themselves. Yeah, double standards are annoying. Hypocrisy is annoying. Dread Pirate, what do you have?
Just remarking actually on that game, I believe the captain of the Italian team, when he pulled the shirt of one of the black players there and pulled him to the ground. Yeah. I mean, we were aghast that he didn't get a black card. You know what I mean? Or a red card, sorry. Or just booted right out of the game.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I mean? Because it was such a glaring case of obvious, you know,
foul.
Very, very obvious foul. And I wondered, of course, I was thinking because of sort of this, you could see that there was this sort of inherent racism in there, that if it had been another player who was not black, if he would have been given a red card. You know what I mean?
Right. Maybe.
George Brown, these guys are talking about soccer. Help us bring us back to America.
No, I can't talk about soccer, but I want to follow up on what Dread Pirate was talking about and preface that with saying that there have been times in my life when I have looked to Canada as an inspiration, you know, like the guys who got it right. You know, when America's so all screwed up, we have this beacon of sanity to the north. Yeah. And that's wishful thinking, I guess. This business with the Indian schools, frankly, has made me just heartsick. And
that wasn't all of Canada. That was just the Catholics.
Yeah, the Catholic residential schools. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting onto psychology of all this, you know, I think what I hear a lot of is us versus them. We're the good guys. They're the bad guys. God is on our side, not theirs. And the minister, of course, the religious leader on that side is saying, God is on our side. Double standard.
Right.
We tend to be generalizers. We have to be. Animals are generalizers. We can
as a survival instinct.
It's whatever. We try to make sense out of the world, and we compartmentalize our knowledge, and so people have a tendency, many people, to have in and out, in group, out group. And there's a tendency to put the people who threaten our beliefs into that out group. That's, you know, the double standards, you watch them come. They come in waves. We're in waves now.
Yeah, we're in waves happening to us now. And I would want to make a point, like, you know, we're a room full of atheists right now. We're all most likely subject to our own special double standards, and we should be aware of that.
Indeed.
And I want them called out when I see them. That's the main thing that I think hopefully differentiates me from someone who's grown accustomed to their double standards and are comfortable. I want them called out for me, and I want to be able to change so that I have one single standard or most optimal possible. Dred, go for you.
Yeah. So we got a comment here from Data's Trading Room, which I really like. He says it's always like that. When the team is winning, we are winning. When the team is losing, they are losing.
Yeah, that's very true.
I like it.
John, what do you have?
Yeah, I want to pick up on what you said, Ty, about people having double standards even in your lab. It's strange.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's strange, isn't it, that there's a big reluctance to admit ignorance. Yet, if we don't know the answer to something, as an ex-science teacher, I get expected to be able to provide all the answers. And when I say nobody knows yet, they don't take that as acceptable. And it's weird to me because skepticism is a perfectly valid position to hold.
Yep.
And if you don't know, it's honorable and honest to say so. Where's their hang up? Why don't they accept that?
Larry,
because they have been trained to have to be right.
They have been trained to have an answer.
Right.
To have to have an answer.
Right.
Yeah. Larry, do you want to talk more on that?
About having to have an answer?
Having to have an, I feel like Christianity trains you to have an answer, not to think about it as an answer, but to have the answer.
Well, 1 Peter 3:15 says always be prepared to defend your faith, defend your beliefs. And, you know, they take that to heart, especially the ones that are apologetic or apologists for the religion. And so many people pick up that gauntlet, as it were, that whether it was thrown down or not, that they feel like they have to defend their beliefs. No matter what the answer, how outrageous or strange the answer is, they feel if they give an answer, they have an answer, which is it's not the same thing as having a valid answer, having an answer that's been vetted or proven to be true.
So our school systems in America, I don't know how they are in Canada or in Britain, but we have a culture where you are better off being wrong than admitting you don't know. And so it goes down to the classroom where, hey, what's the answer to this math equation? Timmy, give it to me. He's not going to say, I don't know. He's going to be like 7. He's going to make a guess and be wrong. When we have a standardized test, they tell you literally, just guess something on the multiple choice because it's better than leaving it blank, right? Yeah. Like they encourage you to have an answer, period. Right. And so we don't really have opportunities to investigate the value of I don't know until we hit into, you know, upper graduate school where it's like, I don't know is actually the right answer until we have a better test for this. And that's mind-blowing level of discomfort to get around if you weren't raised with that idea as a concept, or at least that option. John Richards.
Yeah, I like to think that there's two things. There's an answer, which actually addresses the question, and then there's a response, which doesn't.
Okay, and I'll add a third one. If we can have that, we can have a response, we can have an answer, and then we can have an even better thing, an explanation. And the cool thing about an explanation is it may not even have the answer in it, but it does illuminate a lot of aspects of the question that at least helps you understand what is the nature of what we're talking about and what could be the answer down the road. So I'm a fan of explanations that I don't know. And I realized a lot of times when I was a Christian, I was getting a lot of answers for things, but I wasn't getting any explanations. And that's what made me want to think about like, okay, well, how do these things happen? We don't know yet. That's fine. But I'll at least take the best explanation until then. Like Dr. Five.
Well, some explanations are better than others, for sure. Like,
sure.
You know, you ask a question to a preacher and he gives you an answer, and you ask him for an explanation, he's quite ready to give an explanation and can go on for hours, about the explanation, but it doesn't mean it has anything to do with reality. And then there's your parents' explanation when you say why, and they say, because I told you to. that's not much of an explanation for why. So, no answers and some explanations are about in the same ballpark.
Yeah, that one's right up there with this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you.
Yeah. So, like, what is it? So. The nature of being, how to be a good person, consequences, and all that stuff. Like, I had a high standard for wanting to know why those were the case, and I wasn't getting. For my mom to just be like, I don't know, like figure it out, read the Bible or whatever, which is a good response. In the Bible, it'd say, God says, don't eat shellfish. That's how you be a good person. I'm like, there's an answer, but I'm not sure if that explains anything to me. And then when I started getting explanations, they were like convoluted, they were difficult, they were complex, but that doesn't mean that they were untrue. It just means I had to heighten my ability to understand different things and how my consequences affected other people. I had to read books on ethics, morality. I had to understand, like, hey, maybe I can define my own purpose in life and try to get other people's assessments so I can have a better objective understanding of how to treat people and how I want to be treated. And maybe I don't have the final best model for how to treat people, but I at least have something very reasonable and good. And I found like that is a good enough explanation. That's what I mean by explanation.
So you find something more reasonable. Sure.
Yeah, I found a better answer, a better explanation, a better response. And I feel like that's the standard I want to go by. I want to go to a point where I can always improve and always have the standard of evidence that I have meet whatever the claim is that I believe or want to stay true. And if I don't have that, I'm very annoyed. If someone sells me anything other, it's a very annoying thing because I don't want to be a hypocrite. Dread Pirate Higgs, where can we find you? What's going on with you?
Well, I'm live streaming this right now. It's I started at 8:00 a.m. on Sunday morning, and Pacific Standard Time or Daylight Time, depending on what season. And I can be found on Mind Pirate, MINDPYRATE, on YouTube. Nice. That's my channel.
Very, very cool. Did you get 100 subscribers?
Hey?
Did you get 100 subscribers, my friend?
I'm at 90.
Let's go. He's only 10 away, guys. Blow this thing up.
Yep.
All right.
Well, hopefully, John, with now that we're putting the link into Larry's putting the link into the chat room, we'll get some more viewers and more subscribers.
Hey, I'll tell you how you do it. You just say that your videos are for kids when you upload on YouTube. We'll disable comments, but everybody will be able to see it. It's a question of whether you want that or not. Right. John Richards, future self-proclaimed president. What's going on with you, and where can we find you?
I don't accept that description. You can find me on Freethought Productions. That's a YouTube channel where I do my global atheist news, and my Freethought Hour every week goes out on Saturday. I've got a great guest coming up next week. He's an Australian who is a lecturer in chemistry, and he he's got a lot of thoughts to say about evolution, indeed. So that'll be
interesting. A chemist who has opinions on evolution. That's interesting. Okay. I'd love to hear that. George Brown, Pete's Coffee. Where can I get a cup?
Well, you can only, in this state, the only place where I know you can get a cup is, I believe, Nashville. There is an affiliate store there, but you can find Pete's Coffee in many supermarkets these days, and I get mine at Ingles, but I don't get it very often because it's not cheap. This is good stuff.
Good stuff.
Now, anyway, in this part of the show, I just want to say that you inspired me, a person of a Jewish heritage, to have shrimp for lunch.
Nice.
That's
very cool. Very, very cool.
You'll go to hell, George.
That's the hell you're going to.
I'm going to go to somebody else's hell. I'd be married to it.
Plot twist: Jews don't believe in hell.
Yeah.
Out of five. What do you got?
Well, my own content can be found on digitalfreethought.com. Be sure to click on the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject. My book is Atheism, What's It All About? It's available on Amazon. And you can find my YouTube channel by searching for Larry Rhodes or Doubter5. If you have any questions for this show, you can send them to askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org, and we'll answer them on future shows. And if you're having trouble leaving religious beliefs behind, and it can be hard, you can find help at recoveringfromreligion.org.
There you go.
There's my book. Yay. Thanks, Dred. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. This has been the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. Remember, everybody, including George, is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they, excuse me, when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life, and we'll see you next week. Say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.